Eternal justice. He who has ever seen a cat furtively sneaking onto its owner's table, then stretching its mouth to snatch a piece of fish. He who has seen such a cat and looked into its eyes as it steals, has never forgotten that look filled with a sense of guilt. That the cat, a speechless animal, feels an obscure sensation that it is committing a sin. So if punishment follows and it receives a blow on its head, it lowers its gaze and bows its head, as if vaguely perceiving that it got what it deserved. This is the sensation of the primordial nature installed by the Creator in the fabric of His creatures. It is the primal moral sense. We find its trace even in the speechless animal, like the cat, which after relieving itself turns back to what it did and scratches dirt to hide it from view. This instinctive act indicates a feeling of ugliness and an initiative to conceal that ugliness. This act is also a moral nature, not acquired through learning. Rather, every cat is born with this nature. Likewise, the anger of a camel after repeated humiliation from its owner, after long patience and endurance, and the pride of the lion, its nobility preventing it from attacking its prey treacherously from behind, but always from the front and in confrontation. And it does not kill except to eat, and does not think of eating or praying except when hungry. All these are inherent morals ingrained in the living core of the animal. Then the marital fidelity of doves and the loyalty to the group in animals that move in herds. We are before the primary foundations of conscience, which we discover under the skin and in the blood. No teacher taught it, rather it is in the creation. And we, when we hesitate before an act, it is the result of a natural feeling of responsibility. Then we feel the burden during the act as we discern what is right, and we feel remorse after the act as a result of error. These natural feelings, shared by the intellectual, the primitive, and the child, are evidence of an inner awareness of a power and a system, that there is accountability, that there is justice, and that each one of us is demanded to be just as he has the right to demand it. This is a feeling ingrained in us since birth, coming to us from the Creator who created us and from our very nature. So, if we look at the material world, from the infinitesimally small atoms to the infinitely large galaxies, we find everything running according to laws, calculation, and discipline. Even the electron does not move from one orbit to another orbit around the nucleus unless it gives or takes packets of energy equal to the amounts of its transition, as if it were a passenger on a train who cannot ride except by paying the ticket price. The birth and death of stars have their own laws and causes. The movement of planets in the wheel of gravity has an equation. The transformation of matter into energy and the transformation of the sun's body into light has an equation. The travel of light has its speed, and every wave has its length, its frequency, and its speed, just as every metal has its spectrum and distinctive absorption lines by which it is known in the spectroscope. And every metal expands by a certain amount and contracts by a certain amount with heat and cold. And every metal has its mass, density, atomic weight, molecular weight, constants, and properties. Einstein proved to us that there is a relationship between the mass of a body and its speed, and between time and the system of motion within a moving group, and between time and space. What differentiates materials into solids, liquids, and gases is the average speed between their molecules. And because heat accelerates this speed, it can melt solids and turn them into liquids, then evaporate liquids and turn them into gases. Likewise, electricity is generated according to laws. Electric current moves and acts based on potential difference and intensity. The gravity of every star depends on the magnitude of its mass. Even earthquakes, which seem like kinds of chaos, have their own system, belts and lines where they occur, and the seismic belts can be mapped and traced along the length and breadth of the globe. The entire universe is a schedule of precise discipline laws, wherein there is no deceit nor fraud. A voice may rise to say, "And what is your opinion about the deceit, fraud, wars, injustices, and chaos we're in, about us killing each other out of tyranny and aggression? Where is the system here?" And I would say to him, that is something else. For what happens among us, the tribe of Adam, happens because God made us successors on earth, and established us as rulers who govern, and gave us freedom, and offered us the trust, and we accepted it. With our being given freedom came the possibility of error and correctness. Everything we see around us in our human world is the result of this freedom which we employ. The chaos is our own doing. It is the consequence resulting from our freedom. As for the world, it is of the utmost discipline and system. Had God willed, He could have subjected us to the system by force, just as He subjected the mountains, the seas, the stars, and space. But He willed to remove coercion from us, so that His justice would be complete, and so that each of us would have his own free action, which is of his own essence and inner disposition. He willed thereby a justice, so that our resurrection thereafter would be according to ranks and degrees, which is the establishment of truth and placing everything in its rightful place. Life is continuous, and the life we live in our world is not the entirety of life. The meaning of this is that this interim period of injustices and chaos is a period governed by its own wisdom and causes. And it is the very essence of justice in that it is a test for the subsequent everlasting life. Our world is a period placed in brackets relative to what comes after it and what came before it. It is not the whole truth, nor the entire story. Rather, it is a small chapter in a novel that will have multiple chapters. Man has perceived the truth of the resurrection by nature. Primitive man perceived it. The prophets proclaimed it as news of the unseen, and reason and science affirmed it, realizing that man is body and spirit, as we mentioned in previous chapters. And man is aware of his spirit through his deep, continuous inner feeling of presence amidst the waterfall of temporal changes around him, a feeling that indicates he possesses an inner existence transcending changes, surpassing time, annihilation, and death. Philosophers like Kant, with their weight in thought, spoke of the truth of the soul and the resurrection. In Plato's book, The Republic, there is a wonderful chapter on the immortality of the soul. It is a truth that imposed itself on the greatest minds and the smallest minds, standing as an intuition difficult to deny. But the most important proof of the resurrection, in my view, is that deep, innate inner feeling with which we are all born and according to which we act, that there is a precise system, a law and justice, and we demand it from ourselves and others naturally and instinctively. Our breasts burn if this justice is not achieved, and we fight to establish the pillars of that justice, and we die for justice. And in the end, we never achieve this justice completely. This means that it will undoubtedly be realized in some form because it is an absolute truth that has imposed itself on our minds and consciences all the time. If we do not see that justice realized in our world, it is because we do not see the whole picture, and because our apparent world is not the entire truth. Otherwise, why do our breasts burn at the sight of injustice? And why do we always demand that others be just? Why do we care so much and flare up in anger? The Indian thinker Wahiduddin Khan tells us, as just thirst for water indicates the existence of water, so thirst for justice must indicate the existence of justice. And since there is no perfect justice in this world, it is the proof of the existence of the hereafter, the abode of true justice. Our inner, innate feeling and the definitive proof is that justice is a truth, and if we do not see it today, we will see it tomorrow. This affirmation always comes to us from within, and it is the truth because it is the inspiration of primordially sound nature, part of the precise, flawless natural law, one among the many laws by which existence is regulated. A voice may rise to say, addressing the world of humans, and we ask, why did God create the pig as a pig, the dog as a dog, and the insect as an insect? What is the sin of these creatures to be created in that lowly form? And where is the justice here? And if God will resurrect every soul, why doesn't He resurrect the monkey, the dog, and the pig? The question is weighty, but it is posed by a mind that knows only half of the issue, or one line from the investigation file, and yet hastens to know the ruling and its rationale. In reality, all animal creatures have souls, and God has chosen for each soul the material mold it deserves. God created the pig as a pig because it is a pig. He chose for the porcine soul a porcine material mold. We know nothing about that porcine soul before God placed it in its porcine material mold, and we do not know why or how its genesis was in that form. What is before birth is veiled, just as what is after death is veiled. But people of observation say, as the Quran says, that we were before birth in a world they call the world of the covenant, and we will be after death in another world. Life is eternal. There is no death, only transition and ascension in an unending mirage, ascension, upwards, evolution, sublimation, and striving towards God. This continuity is also affirmed by reason and by justice, which is the eternal truth that God has instilled and deposited in the primordial nature, in the human core, and even in the animal core, as I presented at the beginning of my article. This justice is an absolute truth that will tell us that all material and animal molds are confirmed entitlements, about whose details we know nothing, nor how they were, but we can say, as a matter of intuition, that they were deserved, and that God created the pig as a pig because its soul was a porcine soul, so this was its appropriate garment and mold. As for the resurrection of animals, the Quran says, "There is no creature on the earth, or a bird that flies with its wings, except that they are communities like you. Then to their Lord they will be gathered." They are communities of souls. The Quran tells us that they will be gathered just as we will be gathered. As for what happens to them after that, where they will be and what their fate is, that is part of the unseen, and to inquire into the veiled matters is a curiosity for which we will not find a sufficient answer. Knowledge of everything within the limited moment and within our worldly lifespan is a desire for the impossible. But if our share of knowledge and what we have gained through contemplation is that justice is an eternal truth, and that God has instilled and deposited it in the primordial nature, then we have learned much and attained our sufficiency. And in the same way that we realized God in our first article as the all-encompassing universal mind, the able, the creator, the inspirer, the caretaker of his creatures, in this way, we will understand how God deposited this guiding, directing primordial nature in his creatures. This is required by his care and his justice, to create his creatures and create for them the light by which they are guided. And we will also believe that God sent prophets and revealed scriptures, for God would not be a Lord, nor a God who inspires and manages affairs otherwise. And our evidence for the truth of the heavenly scriptures will be what they bring of knowledge, the unseen, wisdom, legislation, and truth, of a kind that cannot be attained by individual effort, through personal attempt. That God, the Creator, the Just, the Inspirer, who created his creatures and inspired them the path, is a primary principle reached by the mind without strain and suggested by the primordial nature intuitively. Rather, all affectation is to say otherwise. Denial requires all the effort and requires turning away, circular reasoning, sophistry, and futile argumentation, whose end is incoherence because it is not based on foundation and enters the realm of obstinacy and stubbornness more than it enters the realm of neutral, honest contemplation and sound innate nature. This is what my long intellectual journey has told me, from its dazzling beginning in the book God and Man to its humble stance at the gates of the Quran, the Torah, and the Gospel. In my view, a religious person is not one who is fanatical, apprehensive, and imagines that his prophet is the only prophet, and that God did not send any other. For this conception of God is a childish, backward conception, imagining God as being like a tribal sheik. Such a feeling is tribalism, not religiosity. The true conception of God is that He is the generous who gives to all and sends messengers to all. There is no nation but that a warner has passed through it. And we have sent a messenger to every nation. And your Lord would not destroy the cities until He had sent to them a messenger. And we sent messengers about whom we have related to you before, and messengers about whom we have not related to you. What is the meaning of these verses? A prophet can be a messenger in his era even if he is not mentioned in the Quran. Akhenaten could be a messenger in his time, and what has reached us of his teachings may have been subject to distortion. God wants through this to inspire an open faith that embraces all messages, all prophets, and all books, without fanaticism and without bias. And for this reason, He commands us to follow Islam as a religion, because it is the only religion that recognizes all messengers, all prophets, and all books, and seals them with wisdom and legislation, returning them to their source and origin, the one God, the merciful, the inspirer, who sent all the gods, from Adam to the seal. The truest example of open religious consciousness is the consciousness of a man like Gandhi, a Hindu, who nevertheless read in his prayers passages from the Quran, the Torah, the Gospel, and the book of the Dhammapada of the Buddha, in reverence and love, believing in all the books and all the messengers, and in the one Creator who sent them. He was a man whose life, like his words, he spent in love and peace. Religion is one from the doctrinal standpoint of legitimacy, even if the legislations in the multiple religions differ, just as the Lord is one. The virtuous from all religions are upon one religion, because the virtuous religious person does not imagine God as a creator for him alone, or a guide for him alone or for his group alone. Rather, He is the light of the heavens, available to everyone who strives seeking it, the all-merciful, the compassionate, the sender of the guides, the revealer of inspiration in all ages and ages. This is required by His eternal justice, and this is the meaning worthy of the divine station. Without this open faith, the religious person is not truly religious. As for the religions that split into sects, fighting each other in the name of religion, they raise the banner of religion falsely, and the banner they raise is none other than the banner of tribe, race, and gender. They are still in the ignorance of the Aus and Khazraj and the fanaticism of Antara, fighting for vanity, even if they think they are fighting for God. They are doomed. Both the victor and the vanquished among them are polytheists, each worshipping his own idol, his own self, and his personal conception, not worshipping God. Rather, the worship of God begins with knowing God and His station of the names, and knowing God begins with knowing the self and its lower station. This is the path, the straight path, and the mirage from which begins the ascension of the travelers in their greater migration to the truth.